800 victims. That staggering number, just part of the grueling details outlined in a new lawsuit against the Boy Scouts of America.
Lawyers for a group called Abused in Scouting claimed Tuesday that Boy Scouts are continuing to cover up a, quote, pedophilia epidemic. Those attorneys say they have identified 350 previously unknown Scoutmasters and volunteers who allegedly preyed upon underage boys within the organization.
In response, Boy Scouts of America said this, in part, quote, "We care deeply about all victims of abuse and sincerely apologize to anyone who was harmed during their time in scouting. We believe victims. We support them. We pay for counseling by a provider of their choice, and we encourage them to come forward."
Joining us now, one of the attorneys for Abused in Scouting, Tim Kosnoff. He has sued Boy Scouts of America more than 100 times. Tim, thank you for joining us. First, let's go to these 350 new alleged predators. Their names were not known to law enforcement, and they were not in the organization's internal database of ineligible volunteers. The organization insists that the internal database, in part, is to keep sexual abusers out of scouting, not to hide the names from law enforcement. What is your response to all this?
Well, that's false, number one. But number two, if that was the purpose, it was an utter failure, because what we have done is essentially done a criminological survey, and these 350 hidden predators are still just the tip of the iceberg. We have another 150 names where we only have partial identifications. And what we find is that 9 out of 10 of the men that are contacting us are identifying perpetrators that do not appear in the Boy Scouts perversion files and have, for the most part, never been publicly identified before as abusers. So these are the real hidden predators in our community. And it's only because of the courage of our clients coming forward and sharing their stories and identifying their abusers that we now know about these additional people. The Boy Scouts of America's IV file system is like closing the barn door after the horse is out of the barn.
So, Tim, draw us a picture.
It's reactive.
Draw us a picture of
draw you a picture.
What the characteristics were of these abuses. Was there a pattern? Was there a way in which it happened that would indicate systematic acceptance of this, or by Boy Scouts of America?
Let me put it into the simplest way I can, which is, would you entrust your son to an organization that sends him alone out in the woods on overnights with a man that you know absolutely nothing about, that you've trusted that this person is going to be vetted? Because after all, it's the Boy Scouts of America. But in reality, there's been no vetting. The vetting that was done was by mom and dads who don't know how to really do a proper vetting. They had no support from Boy Scouts of America. And so it was so easy for perpetrators to infiltrate this organization and get access to children.
But could that mean that the organization was very weak? That could be different than the organization having a massive cover-up.
Well, here's the rub. They've known about this for 100 years. They've been quietly removing them one every other day since 1916. There are not 8,000 files. There were probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 50,000 perversion files. But since they destroyed a massive amount of them in the 1970s, we don't know how many there were. But if you do count up the rate, you come up with 40 or 50,000 files, and then you have to multiply that by 9, because that's the rate at which people coming forward are identifying new abusers. So hundreds of thousands of abusers, probably still living. Maybe they've moved on to other youth organizations. And when you consider that the FBI says that the abuser has, on average, 100 victims over a lifetime of offending, we're talking about millions of boys who were abused in this organization. The Boy Scouts of America says that they've had over 120 million children in their program since they were founded. So this is not new. What is new is the magnitude of it and the fact that the Boy Scouts, despite their best efforts to try and keep this secret, to minimize it, to hide it from the public. The evidence is now coming in, and it's overwhelming. We were contacted after our press conference in one day by 4,700 men who saw news stories about what we were saying and have contacted us to tell us their stories about abused in scouting. So this, while a very large number, is simply the tip of the iceberg.
Hey, MSNBC fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there and click on any of the videos here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. You can get more MSNBC for free every day with our newsletters. Just visit msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up now.